We're learning new information about the fire and subsequent explosion at Robbins Lumber in Searsmont following the release of a federal report today. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health investigated the May incident and says firefighting actions contributed to the deadly explosion. The NIOSH Firefighter Fatality Investigation and Prevention Program issued its line-of-duty death report Friday for the May 15th fire and explosion at Robbins Lumber in Searsmont. Morrill volunteer firefighter Andrew Cross died at the scene. Searsmont Assistant Fire Chief Wayne Woodbury died about a month later from burn injuries. A third victim, mill co-owner Alden Robbins, succumbed to his injuries in early July. The investigation states 13 other first responders, as well as multiple other mill employees, sustained injuries ranging from minor to serious. Friday's report lays out a timeline of events. Just after 10 a.m. on May 15th, an automatic alert notified employees of a fire with smoke seen coming from the silo. At around 10:20, the first crews arrive on scene. By 10:40, firefighters believed the fire had been largely knocked down. The report says at that time there was no sense of urgency, and the response was relaxed. The response continued until 11 when firefighters heard a whoosh sound and smoke began to come from the top of the silo before it suddenly launched into the air, throwing those surrounding the silo back. One of the major findings of the report is that the silo was oxygen limiting and designed to restrict the amount of air entering the structure. NIOSH says with that model, water and foam should not have been used to fight the fire, and the mill did not clearly warn of the hazards of combustible dust. The report details firefighters opening silo doors to insert hoses, which introduced oxygen, ultimately contributing to the explosion. NIOSH says silo fires of this nature should be left to smother themselves out over the course of several weeks under supervision. Another key finding, crews on scene did not utilize a tag-based personnel accountability system, which locates all crew members at a scene. The report says officials did not realize Cross was missing until 2 hours after the incident, when the fire marshal's office was conducting their personnel check. As for future recommendations, NIOSH says to prevent incidents like this, firefighters should be trained on the hazards of silos and develop pre-incident plans. The report also says clear hazard labeling on silos of that nature should be utilized. In a statement posted to the Robbins Lumber website, co-owner Catherine Robbins Halstead says in part, quote, "The NIOSH report is intended to identify lessons that can help prevent similar tragedies in the future. We are committed to carefully reviewing its findings and recommendations and working collaboratively with the fire service, industry organizations, safety professionals, and regulatory agencies to improve safety wherever possible." She goes on to say, quote, "The events of May 15th changed countless lives forever. We will continue to honor those who were lost by supporting efforts that improve safety for everyone."